Are you a real estate investor looking to sharpen your skills or a newbie looking to become one? You're in the right place. Welcome to Where Should I Invest? Real Estate Investing in Canada with your host, Sarah Larbi.
Welcome back, listeners, and today's show is going to be another special episode, uncensored, with Andrew Hines sharing our opinions. So again, please take what we say as just opinions, do your own research and due diligence. Don't take any action on any of these opinions. These are just what we think is happening in the current state of how things are going. So welcome to the show. Andrew, how are you?
I'm good, Sarah. How are you?
Good. 30,000 foot view of who you are as an investor and what you do.
So I started real estate investing around 2011. Student rentals are the main thing I am in, and I am I also own a construction company, so I'm still in the construction business. We're still rolling along, although we're watching things slow down a little bit, and of course that's obviously a concern, which we'll talk about today.
Absolutely. Awesome. And I will say, when I think student rentals, I think I probably referred a lot of people to you in your podcast, because you take some amazing, properties, turn them into, I think you're like probably the top person I can think of for burring students rentals and doing it well, and really in that higher end market. So,
well, thank you.
Super awesome. So what's your take? I mean, we don't have wine right now. I mean, maybe you do, but I'm just drinking like lemon water. Sometimes
a beer would be great. Yeah.
Sometimes I do these podcasts over wine, and then we just kind of talk and share some insights. But what, in your perspective, is happening right now, and what should we be aware of as investors?
Well, and I try and be as delicate as I can with all this, because I've been saying it from the beginning. The biggest concern that we have in all of this is really the steady and progressive removal of our civil liberties, our rights. And we've already seen that happening. Stay at home, you can no longer run your business. And the thing that I think a lot of people would never have thought when all this would have happened, or I would never give up my rights. And they wouldn't have thought that if a circumstance had been created that were the right sequence of events, that they would actually celebrate giving up their rights. And that scares the heck out of me. I'll try not to swear. That scares me a lot, because that is always the way it will be. No one ever says, "Oh, just take my rights. I don't want them anyway." Any right that was ever taken away from anyone was probably almost always done out of fear. Fear is dangerous. So that's one of the main concerns that I have, seeing everything going on right now. If you want to know what I see in the real estate market specifically, obviously we've seen things slow down. What I've seen in the market in general, and my concern is that we deal in a fiat currency, which means our currency is not backed by anything. The only reason our currency has value to absolutely anybody is because we're told to value it. We're told that this is the dollar you pay your taxes in, this is the dollar that the stores will accept. And because they do, we all continue under that illusion. However, what happens in money creation, and we won't go too deep into that with confusing the subject, is that right now we're paying people to stay at home and do nothing. They're not adding value. And really, GDP in a country can only really be created when there's value created, but no value is being created. Money is just being given to people. It's being printed, sent out. It's destroying our currency. And it's scary, because this has a lot of implications, but you're going to say something, so go ahead.
No, I was going to say, look at all the quantitative easing. They started printing money, and then this is going to lead to inflation like you wouldn't believe.
Crazy inflation. And people might say, "Oh, why is that a problem? That's not going to be bad for us. We're investors. In fact, your house might go up in value." But that happened more in 2008, because they did major quantitative easing in the States, and don't kid yourself, everything they do affects us very directly, because we buy from them. We're heavily connected to them, and we did our own too. But in the States, basically, the Fed basically printed money. They print it, really. They get a call, they print the money. They go out and they were buying asset-backed securities. They were basically buying stuff from hedge funds. They were just throwing money at the market, but most of it was ending up in big corporations through bailouts and all that different stuff. That money ended up making its way back into the equities market. So if you look between then and now, we've never seen the Dow Jones do better. It was the longest, quote unquote, bull market that we've seen. But I actually question whether it was a true bull market, because when you adjust for inflation, the growth isn't as good as it seems. The US has over doubled their currency and supply since then. And now they're just throwing trillions and trillions of dollars at this. And we're doing something similar here in Canada. And when you increase the currency supply, every dollar is now worth less. So if you think basic supply and demand, we've got a supply of goods. So right now we're looking at our situation. All of our supply chains are compromised. We're not producing as much goods. They're not getting to us. We're seeing lineups at grocery stores already. Amazon's sold out because everything's compromised. Everyone is working at reduced capacity. People are sitting at home. They're still eating. They're still doing all that stuff. So we're already seeing this. What happens when we get back to work and we have all these extra dollars in circulation, but all of our supply is compromised? So we're going to have way more dollars of demand than we have units of supply. That is going to drive our price way up. And my concern is we go into that territory, 10% plus, where we're going to start getting into, severe inflation to hyperinflation, like they saw in Germany post World War I, where no one has any faith in anything. You're going to the grocery store with a wheelbarrow full of cash. Back then, of course, we'd still have our credit card, but your ability to buy diminishes. So then you have absolute chaos. People can't save because their money has no value. They're trying to buy everything out of the store. So people are hoarding goods, can't save anything. And then all of a sudden you're in a situation where people are getting violent. People will actually get violent in a scenario like that. And I'm not trying to paint doomsday, guys. Like, that's not at all what I'm trying to do here, but I'm trying to wake us up to the fact that the path we're on is extremely dangerous and we need to speak up about it. Like, everybody acts like, oh, we have to save as many people as possible with COVID. And I agree. We need to save as many people as reasonably possible without sacrificing our sovereignty. Remember, in World War II, we sacrificed 45,000 Canadians. They died in that war to protect our freedom, to protect our planet. We're watching a war happen right now, and all we're thinking about is how we save people when literally we sent 45,000 people off to die. So we have to put this into perspective. We can't sacrifice everything to save lives right now. We have to put a balanced approach in place. And I totally get it. Like, this is sensitive. And I can't see my mom. Like, literally, we can't see each other because of the risk that I might infect her with something. It's tragic. This sucks. Like, she's I don't have any of my grandparents anymore. My father's already passed away. She's my last parent alive. And this affects me too. So I don't say this lightly.
Right. No, absolutely. But I do tend to agree with you, and I'm not to take away from the severity of it. Like, I had some friends that got it, and their mom got it too. And she was on a ventilator, and it was hour by hour at some point. So, like, it is bad. But then you also look at, like, the heart attacks, the domestic violence, all of the other things. And so I think the more that this goes on, the harder it's going to be. People are expecting the payments. And the crazy thing is, some people that are getting this $2,000, they weren't even making that in the past. And now it's like a pay raise. And actually what scares me the most is all of these talks about how universal income might be the way to go. And we live in Canada. And we voted in Ontario for a conservative, and, for the ability to say, if you want to get off your ass, and I'm not saying this for everybody, everyone's got different situations, but in general, we reward people that do more and that take action and move forward and try to bring their lives forward, create different streams of income, etc. But all of a sudden, this universal income is like, why bother? Right? Like, why would you bother working if you're going to be taxed more to give the universal income to a lot of people that are unfortunately milking the system? Not everybody, but there's a lot of people out there that are like, sweet, you know what? If the government, they owe me, I'm going to take what I can. And I hope they have an exit plan. I hope they have a plan at the end of this, because it is going to be, I think it's going to be a mess. And it's not going to be right now. But I think what's going to happen when CERB is done, when mortgages that people deferred are back due, and there's still a lot of jobs that are lost, because we've lost a lot of jobs, in my opinion, for good.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Like, do we care about our culture? It's so much more, right? Like, you were talking about, like what about the people who lose everything, and then we have suicides that follow that, because that's what happens. Like, when business owners lose everything, when pension holders lose everything, and like they thought they had $100,000 in Canada savings bond, and that would buy them 3 or 4 more years, and then after inflation comes, that won't buy them a half a year. We have to consider all those things. There's a well-rounded effect that will come out of all of this. But as far as business owners go, I've heard people speculate that maybe only 1 in 10 will survive this. And think about that. So that means all their employees now are laid off. And here's where the deleveraging, deflationary period happens. So I know we're talking about inflation, but generally you'll see deflation first, because all this money people are going to get, they're going to hoard it. They're going to put it under their mattress, not literally, but they're not going to spend it. So it's not going to have that immediate inflationary effect necessarily, because a lot of these baby boomers, this was the last straw. They don't have any money left to lose. So now everything they get, they're going to keep it. So that might happen in the short term. But what happens is one person's savings is another person's income. So now if everybody's saving because they just got burned the worst they've ever been burned and lost everything, then that on top of all the businesses that lost employees, and now they've laid them off, so they've got unemployment through the roof. People are conserving spending. We're going to see our GDP fall like a rock. And when it falls like a rock, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And that's where the money comes in. They start raining money down in quantities you've never imagined, until people will finally be willing to spend again. And that's when the hyperinflation happens. It hits that point because a free market can manage itself. It has equilibrium. You find where supply and demand meet, and you find where that market is. And our problem in both Canada and the US is that we don't allow our free market to function. We're constantly interfering. They interfere with bailouts. They don't let Air Canada go bankrupt when it wants to go bankrupt. The 4 or 5 times it's happened, they keep bailing it out. When in reality, if, going back to 2008, they let that stuff happen, we wouldn't be in position to fall so hard right now, because our equities markets have been propped way up by all the bailouts that happened back in 2008. There's way more currency in circulation. So we really do have to consider there's so many factors here. And to just think about COVID, to me, just seems a little crazy. And I don't know if you agree with that, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, you've explained it in a really easy to understand way. Like you have an economics background or...
Well, I did minor in economics prior to going to Ivy. I didn't end up getting that on my degree because they don't do that, or they didn't do it at the time. But I also just take an interest in what I would highly recommend is for anyone listening to this, don't take my word for it. Go do your own research. Go on YouTube and look up Ray Dalio's what is it? I think it's the debt cycle. He basically explains how markets work. It's a 31-minute video. You'll know you got it if it's 31 minutes exactly. And he explains it really well too. And then you can do your own digging too. In the last 2 weeks, I've been on the Government of Canada website looking up our national debt. Currently, we're at $1 trillion for the record. That's $20 billion a year in debt service, spread that across 38 million taxpayers. And it's a pretty hefty number. So there is a cost to what we're doing as well. But go on the Fed's website, go on the government of the US website, and you can look up all their financial statements and you can see what's really happening here. And this model is not sustainable. We're continually running deficit governments every single year. How long do you think that can go on before this apathy? You pointed out apathy from basic income. We have apathy already because people can get EI for 48 weeks. People are apathetic. Like, I'm in the construction business trying to get general labor. They keep raising minimum wage. Like, no one even wants to work for minimum wage. And it's like, what, $14 now? When I was working, it was like $6, when I got my first jobs. And, I just see a steady trend of apathy. And then there will come a point where no one wants to work because everything's being handed to them. And I think we have enough references to know that's really sliding towards communism. And it's never really worked out.
No, I tend to agree. I mean, at the end of the day, like, I know these are opinions and stuff, but sometimes I look at Sweden and I look at what they're doing and how they didn't shut the whole economy down. Are they going to be better off? And
well, economically, no question. No question.
So then what's worse? Like, how many more debts do we prevent if every week that we're closed or every week that we have the shutdown? So I'm hoping that this doesn't last very much, much longer. The longer it goes, the worse it's going to be. But I don't think it's going to be right now. Like, I think we're going to see it. It's going to take 4 to 6 months or more for us to feel the aftermath effects on something like this.
I think we're seeing supply chain effect now, and I don't want to scare everybody, and please don't go run out and buy everything right now because I still want to eat too. But, but growing your own vegetables would be a very good idea this summer. Just saying, get your seeds, plant your gardens, grow some of your own food too, hedge yourself. It's like kind of spreading your investments around. I think that Sweden has taken a more balanced approach. Maybe they weighed, I don't know, because our media, which is the thing we're going to talk about, will not talk about the validity of their plan. We'll only criticize. Oh, is it doomsday for Sweden? They probably looked at it and said, well, if we let our economy crash, we're all doomed. Do you want chaos, civil war? Do you want, people fighting and punching each other over the last can of beans in the grocery store? I mean, do we really want to go down that road? I think that there's a nice middle ground, right? It's not black and white. We don't need to say, like, Trudeau's talking forced vaccination. He's starting to drop that. I mean, that's a civil violation of my rights to force me to have a vaccination. I've done my research on vaccinations, and I will happily provide source data to anybody who'd like to reach out to me. So there's only been one coronavirus vaccine that was there's never been a coronavirus vaccine that's actually worked. So coronavirus is just a category of viruses, right? They have the crown look. So the last one was SARS back in 2002, 2003, right? The ones that they came up with back then, they initially vaccinated people, but then when they gave them the actual infection, when they exposed them to the actual infection, they overreacted to it and got sicker, and they were affected worse than people who had never had the vaccine at all. There's all kinds of data out there to suggest that vaccines are actually quite dangerous. People who have had the flu shot, there are actually scientific peer-reviewed studies that show people who have had the flu shot are worse affected by coronavirus. So if you put that into consideration, there are tons of questions around these vaccines. To say that you have to take it is, to me, tyranny. Like, that's absolute tyranny.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's going to be a lot of upset people, but my other concern, and I want to go back to something here, is the media and what the media is portraying and what the media is showcasing. And I feel that there's a little bit of lack of control for us, because everything we're seeing just seems very one-sided in my opinion.
Totally. What happened to the day's journalism was to review what the government said was the official story and the official narrative, and then say, well, the government's saying this, but we've done this research too, and we see that there are, these conflicting, thoughts, and that, oh, wait a minute, yeah, we could sit in lockdown for a year, but wait a minute, that's got economic consequences. It's clear that Justin Trudeau isn't thinking about this, and then you have the open commentary section, and people can say whatever they want. What I've seen is that that dissent or free thought is, and I posted a meme on it yesterday, is the new counterculture. If you're questioning the official narrative, if you're not, just going along with what everyone said, you're kind of looked at as the extremist, which I find absolutely insane. And you're absolutely right. They seem to be trying to paint this as a one-sided crisis that, is going clearly in one direction. And I just don't get that. Like, since when do we need censorship on Google and YouTube? So now Google and YouTube are taking videos and content down. Anything that questions, right now it's 5G. I'm sure it's going to go to vaccination as well. And basically they'll put this little white block over a video and say, inaccurate information or misleading information, and here's why, and you see why. And it says, well, because the government says this. So this is inaccurate information because the government's official narrative is this. Like, where are we? Is this 1984? Like, the truth has nothing to hide. If the truth has nothing to hide, let me investigate things from all perspectives and make up my own mind. And if the truth is the truth, then I will believe the truth. But I think the problem is this censorship now teaches everybody that you're supposed to conform with the party line. You're not supposed to dissent. And I went to business school. Every single day you're talking about, hey, what did Pfizer do? And what did General Electric do? Do you think that manager made a good decision or a bad decision? What was good? What was bad? Since when are we not allowed to question this about our prime minister, to act like he knows everything and he's perfectly right?
100%. But like, why do you think, because this is why I wanted you to come on my podcast, because you put some great posts on Instagram and you are questioning what's happening and you are raising questions, but why do you think that is not really happening?
Like, why are we not allowed to question?
Why are we not questioning more? Why are we not seeing more of both sides of, the pros and cons of doing this? Is it really worth what we're doing right now? Is it really worth all of the money that the government is throwing in? Is it, I don't know. Is it worth to shut everything down? Is it worth to really focus on social isolation? And if we question all of that, then we basically get our hands slapped. I don't know.
We can only speculate as to the exact reason. I mean, I can give some examples of why people should question, but clearly there's an agenda that, a foregone conclusion as to how this is going to play out. If you dig into Bill Gates, which I would highly suggest anyone listening to this, go dig into Bill Gates, his history. He's got an agenda. He reaches deep into a lot of people's pockets. He's in the World Health Organization's pocket. So any information coming from WHO, which all of our countries rely on, is some way affected by Bill Gates' agenda. And for those of you who aren't familiar, he is like the leading world spokesperson on vaccination. He's got investments with pretty well all big pharma. And he's done some pretty sick things. And if you actually want to see specific examples of that with the backing to prove it, I would recommend people just check out Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Instagram page. He posts on it pretty regularly. And I'm a huge fan of the Kennedy family. They were the good guys, the ones always standing up for what's right. And I'd highly recommend. So why do we see this agenda happening? There's one speculation. Who knows exactly, right? This is, again, this is opinion. I think something worth looking into, worth investigating. But I would say if you notice things being taken down, or if someone is saying that YouTube's censoring this or Facebook's censoring that to me is an indication I need to look into it. So I heard they were doing that with 5G, and I had no problem with 5G whatsoever. Didn't even know about it. And I hear people talking about it and hear that they're censoring it now. So I go dig into it. Sure enough, there was never a study done to prove that 5G microwave radiation is safe for humans. No study. If you think about a real estate developer, if I want to develop a building, I have to do a traffic study. I have to do noise studies. So how does the noise from the road affect the tenants? I would probably have to spend, if I wanted to build a 20-story building, I might spend $200,000 to $2 million in soft costs doing engineer and expert studies to prove that what I was going to do was safe for all those around, how it was going to affect the community, how the look would fit in with the neighborhood. Yet technology providers are allowed to come in to a country with absolutely no study and do whatever they want. So why is it not okay that I question that? Why does YouTube and Google need to censor that so that I can't question that? To me, something seems off there. And again, I'm just saying these are the things that don't add up to me. I don't know exactly why, but I've seen a lot of things that don't add up. And then I see a lot of people going along with the current narrative, and it's concerning to me for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't fully know what's going on either, but I do know that there's some stuff that we don't even know. Like, here's an example. Recently, they said no more short-term Airbnb rentals. Except for if you're trying to provide it to like first responder, and you're fined $100,000, or if as an individual putting it on Airbnb for short term or just short term in general, or 10 million for a company. And it really makes me wonder why A, is it so hefty, but B, like, I mean, maybe put some regulations around it, like the house has to sit empty X amount of days in between, or it just seems like there's something else behind the scenes. And to have such a hefty bill or fine if you break it also seems like they're trying, I don't know, this is like, there's a bunch of things in my mind. I'm like, okay, is this from the hotel industry that's really trying to push this stuff so that there's no more Airbnb after? Is this just temporary hopefully it's just temporary to just say maybe some Airbnb hosts are not going to clean it the same as hotels? Fine, okay. Or is it a way to say, well, we have a housing issue. We need more long-term housing. The landlord-tenant board is closed. A lot of investors may not want to take a risk, so they might do short-term. Should we ban it now? Blame COVID, potentially. Create more investors, however, having their arm twisted to put these rentals that are short-term now on long-term rentals to create more supply. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely possible. That's definitely, I mean, I've speculated on stuff too. Why is this happening? It seems very evident that our government is doing nothing for small business owners. And I apologize if you can hear the dog in the background there. It seems evident.
Ben is so cute.
Yeah. Yeah. He's just upstairs, but he's making some noise. But it seems evident that our leaders are not doing anything for small business owners. If the initiative here was to lead and help our small business owners, they would be giving them money. Right now, they've opened up a $40,000 line of credit through a bank that they're backing at the government level, but you do have to pay it back. Now we have like beauty salons, nail salons, food places, first off, the nail salons and hair places and whatever, they're shut down. So if they got like $4,000, $5,000 a month in rent, it's just accruing and accruing and accruing. And when they come out of this, they're going to have to dig their way out of a hole. Well, what if they were a break-even business that, maybe they made just enough money to live on? Now they're racking up, $20, $30, $40,000 in debt for carrying their business through. They're just going to go under. Like, if our government really wanted to protect them, they wouldn't have taken away their right to run their business and then basically not provided them with the money to keep it alive. It seems to me that there is some sort of an agenda here that doesn't care about small business for whatever reason that is. Otherwise, the policy would be much better to protect them. So I think if there was, let's just hypothesize, if there was an agenda to create more of a state dependence with a universal basic income and to push that bill through, this would be the type of crisis, and you can see them doing it to do that. And if there was an agenda to take away our human rights and take away our rights, and this crisis just happened to come along and was the perfect launch board for that, they would exploit it exactly the way that we're seeing this go down. So just question that, right? What might the ulterior motives be? I realize that for a lot of people, there's cognitive dissonance, meaning that they do not want to accept that there might be a hidden agenda behind things and that things aren't cheery and peachy as we believe them to be. But do you really believe, if we lived in a true democracy and there wasn't all kinds of corruption we didn't know about, do you really believe that we would have only had the three political options we had at the last election? Do you really believe that there would only be a Republican and Democrat ever in the US? There is just so much going on behind the scenes. I'm quite convinced of that. And I'm just constantly questioning. And my main message to anyone who follows me, and I know I'm polarizing some people, but I just want you to think. I don't know the exact answer. I do have theories about how we could solve this problem right now, and get back to work and save lives and save our culture and our economy and our small business owners. Because I don't know about you, but I don't want to go downtown Burlington and see no small business, not be able to go to the restaurants I used to like, not be able to, to support those small businesses. Those are a big part of our culture. They're a big part of what makes Canada, Canada, and what makes it great. They're why immigrants want to come here. You think immigrants are going to want to come here once we've taken away all of our rights and killed all our businesses? Like, this will change the face of Canada forever.
Yeah, and I think what I would just say in all of this is it's just important to question it, right? Like, I don't think you have to be all, one direction or another, or like there can't be, any other reasons, or there has to be other reasons, but look at both sides. And then, I guess you make your opinion and your judgment on that. I like to question both sides. I like to get insight from both sides. I like to see, okay, they're doing this, but what are the consequences of doing that? Why could they be doing this? I mean, there's going to be tons of unanswered questions.
Yes.
But I always think that there's what they know, and then there's what the media deciphers down. Like, even just, here's the thing. They probably knew we would still be in isolation this many days later, but they didn't start that way, right? Because if they started to say, and you guys are going to have to do this for a whole month or 2 months, we would have lost our minds.
Right. So knowing that, it's like somebody gave me the analogy of, like, if you got a burglar at the back door and you got kids, you don't tell them that there's a burglar. You just say, "Oh, kids, go up to your room." When they said 2 weeks, they knew it wasn't 2 weeks. They knew. He probably knew at that time that he was going to be forcing the agenda of a vaccine. Now he's not saying that it's going to be forced vaccination now. Now he's saying, "Oh, well, we're going to be locked down until a vaccination," which implies it's going to be forced vaccination. Everyone's going to have to take it. Otherwise you can't go back into business to do your thing. I see these things unfolding. So yeah, you just have to question, and I question too, right? I don't assume, right? You can't take any information you see or hear as a matter of fact. You do have to question. But if this were an agenda to take away some of our human rights, it's playing out perfectly, and it's being delivered perfectly. And every day I see Trudeau come on that YouTube stream, and I'm just like, ugh, I get a sick feeling. I'm like, I got to turn this off. It just feels really dishonest. But I did want to give an example. So of government misdoings, misgivings, doing things that are absolutely terrible and unethical. So you can look this up. You can actually Google it, Operation Mockingbird, which was a CIA infiltration into the American media. So as it is right now, American media is pretty well amalgamated among 6 companies. 90% of their media, including newspaper, television, all radio stations. Like, literally, it's conglomerate, which, in my opinion, if you want free speech and free media, There should be a law against amalgamation. There should be. But Operation Mockingbird, which you can look up, it's admitted to, was basically the CIA in the 60s going in and controlling what media said. And it was kind of during the Cold War side of things. But do you really think they stopped? Because they were trying to control what the media could say back then. They had CIA operatives. Anderson Cooper actually interned at the CIA. Surprise, surprise. Question things. I'm not saying anything is any which way, but we have proof, documented proof that did in fact happen. For years, we were told Hitler died at the end of World War II, but then the CIA documents were released and we found out that Hitler was actually being tracked in Argentina. Now, they even had a photo that they thought was him. Do we know for sure? No, but we know we were told one thing and they were doing another. That's just fact. I'm not saying anything beyond the fact here. So knowing that those things happen, and I've been following these things that happen. Gulf of Tonkin was the inciting incident for the Vietnam War. CIA has admitted that was a false flag event. They said that the Vietnamese shot down one of their aircraft carriers or something along those lines. Didn't happen. They admitted it. So these are things you can look up and prove, hey, for a fact, we have seen examples in the last 50 years of governments saying one thing to complete an agenda. That concerns me. Just looking into those facts.
Yeah, absolutely. So then as a real estate investor, landlord, student rental owner, knowing that you really don't know potentially if there is an agenda or not, what are you doing to prepare?
Well, I always kept a reserve of cash, and not for this, because this is what they call in the market a black swan event. You could never have predicted something like this, and I don't really know if I am prepared. But what I am doing is, everybody's in the middle of a lease right now. Fortunately, if I were on the buy side, I would not be buying anything right now in the student rental market, being now, when we're recording this, is April. Because I think that based on what Trudeau has said, the agenda would be to not have school resume in September. So new leases, if you didn't already have one, would definitely be a challenge. I'm more concerned for, come September, October, when I normally do my re-renting. That's not going to be possible in the same way it used to be. So what I'm doing is I'm hoping and praying, but I do have my cash reserves which I've set aside. If I need to, I will call the banks and defer my mortgages. I have not done that so far, but I will play that by ear if I see people not paying. So far, everyone's paid, and I know that they're getting their benefits and what have you. So that's a positive. Another positive is my mortgages, the variable rate ones, are paying down a heck of a lot quicker right now. Money is cheaper. So there definitely are some positives with all of this. I don't mean to be all doom and gloom. Sorry if I've been that way.
No, I think it's interesting to have different opinions and not to always just say it's all perfect and it's all great. Like, I will say I'm happy that I got into real estate. There's ups and downs. This is one of those downs, but you got to prepare for both. And I think it's important, right?
Well, on that note, so, I got into real estate because I questioned things, and I saw all these people retiring with not enough, and then I looked at real estate. I'm like, well, that actually goes up in value. When all these pension funds are up and down, and, they don't materialize, real estate's always gone up. And it's what we call a real asset. It's what they call it, real estate. Gold, silver, hard goods, those are called real assets because they have intrinsic value. We have, our money is not a real asset. It's a fiat currency, meaning it's not backed by anything. It's worth less. So, if I was sitting on a bunch of cash right now that I didn't need for reserves against my real estate in case, we had cash flow problems or whatever, I would be putting it into something that's a hard good. I might buy cheap real estate. I might buy, gold, silver, precious metals, things that are going to have a use. And one of the reasons that gold and silver are useful is they're used in all kinds of industry. They're used in electronics. They have that intrinsic value. So that's something to consider. That's obviously not advice to anybody, but I think that as a real estate investor at a time like this, you really do need to protect your cash position, even though, as Ray Dalio says, like, cash is trash in 2020, we're going to experience a roller coaster ride, and the cash you have is going to lose buying power hard. But if you need cash flow, you need it. Like, what are you going to do? Like, to me, I have money sitting and I hate the idea that it's sitting, but what am I going to do? Like, I have to protect my own business, my real estate business. And if mortgage payments are coming out, if I don't collect certain rents, who knows? You got to be in a position where you can afford that. And I don't even have complete faith in our lines of credits, our secured lines of credits. There is a chance that banks might lock those down. They might just say, hey, given the circumstance, we don't want any new credit extending.
Yeah. I mean, if it gets bad enough, that's definitely something that they reserve the right to do. I mean, Scotia now, this week, they say no more down payments from your HELOCs. Well, I mean, it's starting.
Yeah.
And I would say, if you need the cash, I would take some and I would put it in a different bank, just to have. And yeah, it's going to cost you a little bit of interest on it every single month, but you never know when they're going to say, we're going to clamp down on the HELOCs. House values went down 20-30%. We're going to reduce 20-30% on the HELOC. I mean, again, we don't know what's going to happen. It's unlikely, but if this keeps going on and it gets worse and worse, I mean, anything is possible. Absolutely. Every day the lenders get tougher and tougher as we are in social isolation and things don't get reopened.
Yeah. If you had asked somebody 3 months ago if they had ever thought that we would be where we are right now, leaving our house just for food and whatever, I don't think anyone would have said, no, not in Canada. We wouldn't have given up our freedoms like that. We wouldn't have done that. Looking back, if you could go back in time. So just always try and keep that in mind, right? Like we could never have predicted this, and therefore we can't really predict what's coming either. So we do need to be careful. But yeah, I mean, on the note of any hard assets, gold, silver, whatever, you might just actually win on that, right? If you borrowed that money out, you might see those prices go up, because in times when people see huge money, economic easing, huge money coming into your economy, people tend to flock to those type of assets because they know inflation's coming. So, you might see that value get pushed way up, and then when you convert it back, you actually profit from that. Totally speculative, but some people might actually go down that road.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just important. And I will agree with you. It's important to have some cash. And one of the things I would say, when I was talking to my mortgage broker, instead of deferring your mortgage, if there's somebody on the line that's listening and they're thinking of deferring, if you have an advanceable line of credit, which essentially is when you put $1, into principal, you have $1 of HELOC, you have access to this money that you just go into your branch and they unlock it. And you can have a line of credit without having to requalify. It's yours. Essentially, you paid down the principal, but you can use that to help you pay your mortgage payments instead of deferring. And it goes back into the principal portion that you're going to pay goes back into your HELOC essentially. So you're paying a lot less per month in a sense.
Yeah, and I think the biggest reason to do that would be to not want to wait on the phone for 12 to 15 hours with the bank trying to have the conversation about deferring your mortgage. I do think that they'll play ball with people, because if one person defaults, it's their problem, but if everybody defaults, it's the bank's problem. So I think that they're coming along. Even for investors, it seems like they're opening up and being willing to defer mortgages. Really, the biggest reason I don't need it. But I mean, I would take advantage of it. Absolutely. I just don't want to wait on the phone for all those different mortgages. I'm like, no, it's not a desperate situation right now.
Yeah. See, I actually will disagree with you. I don't think I would want to use it, and I wouldn't recommend it unless, like you said, you had to. Because my concern with that is you're declaring financial hardship. Fine. The banks say it's not going to ruin your credit. Fine. It depends on how they report it to Equifax and TransUnion, and then you've got to keep checking it. But my concern is, like, what if you want to refi within those 6 months something? What if you want to buy a new piece of property because there's a great opportunity? I think it's going to cap you. I don't think they're going to loan out if you've done that. Again, things change every single day, but I think you're right. I think as an investor, I don't think it's the best. And you may or may not even qualify for it too, right? But the other thing is the banks, the lenders, they're going to question why it was so fast. Like, every investor that jumped on deferring their mortgages, like the second that it was available and before even April 1st came, so you didn't know if your tenants were going to pay you or not. Those people, in my opinion, as a lender, I'd probably be like, well, they don't really have a good, business backup plan for these types of things. Am I going to loan them stuff in the future? We don't know all the consequences, but my thoughts are those people are going to have a harder time qualifying moving forward.
Yeah. And the macro effect of all this is probably going to be the banks wanting to really buckle down and really force higher restrictions. So showing more cash reserves if you want to buy rental property, just like they're doing, saying no more borrowing the money. Like they want to see people who are liquid, who can afford it. So so the macro effect isn't good. But what I will say, the silver lining is, no matter how crazy or whatever happens, when society does resume, the typical response of our government would be to start backing our banks' loans, just like they have for the loan for business owners, which of course I said is a huge misstep and the wrong way to handle this. But so they're probably going to start backing mortgage loans way more than they do right now with CMHC. Maybe they'll waive the CMHC fee. Maybe they'll have CMHC insurance on everything, all the new ones. Because if you haven't noticed, like if you're, as an investor, if you're willing to insure your mortgage, the bank will give you a better rate. They're far more eager to go aggressive on loan to values. But most investors, since you can only get 80%, they don't want to pay mortgage insurance. They just want to get a regular balance sheet loan with their bank. And we'll see. But I think that they're going to do everything they can from a government level to stimulate lending, because that's how you get out of recession. We are in recession now. It's going to be bad for as long as we're locked down. It's going to be bad when all our market realizes that so many people have lost their jobs permanently and they're lost their businesses. But our government's going to rain that money. They're going to pump money in for business loans, pump money in for all kinds of loans. So they're going to do everything they can to bring it back. And I think that we will see mortgage lending rules turn around when we come on the other side of this.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Changes every day, right? So I think ultimately what I would just say is there's so much negativity all around us. Try to read it with an objective point of view, make your own opinions. And I will say that this will come and this will go, and we'll be in a better position in 5 years from now. Don't realize your losses if you don't have to. If you don't absolutely need to sell at a loss, don't sell at a loss. Hang in and then just keep planning for when this happens again. And I think that's the best thing, because there's ups and downs. This is an unfortunate time that we're all having right now, but it will get better at some point.
So Sarah, I haven't heard that many people say that many negative things about the real estate market. I've heard people say it's, I used to pay 50 over ask and now I'm paying 50 under ask. What are you seeing as the negativity? Are you seeing the people with the larger portfolios not getting paid?
I think right now it's a big issue with the landlord tenants and the landlord tenant board being closed until, who knows, end of the summer, maybe September. And if a tenant was already not able to pay or not going to be able to pay moving forward, like that tenant is going to be able to live potentially for free for 18 plus months before they get kicked out. So I think there's a lot of concern there. There's a lot of resentment, I think, from tenants to landlords, from landlords to tenants. And there might be some people that will get out of the business and will have a bigger shortage issue down the road, because they're going to say, my tenants can't pay. I'm not covering, their mortgage payments plus my mortgage payment, or their expenses plus mine. They could have lost, the landlord could lose their job. So I think there's a lot of stuff going out around with the tenant piece. And the landlord tenant board being shut down, and already the residential tenancies, favors the tenants. So that's the big thing. And then I think just from an investment standpoint, you're probably going to be waiting, and I would recommend to wait another month or two, because I don't think we've seen what's going to happen yet, right? Like there's not a lot of supply, there's not a lot of demand. Once one of them starts shifting, then I think we're going to see what the prices will do or what things will happen. But as a landlord, you're concerned, right? Like, are your tenants going to pay for May? Were they already behind in April? What recourses do you even have? Because Ford said, don't worry, put money on the table for food first. Don't worry about your rent. So I think there's a lot of issues with that kind of stuff happening right now.
Yeah, I agree. And just, can you still hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. One specific note I have on that is if you have tenants that are doing that, here's how I would approach that. I would speak with them and I would tell them, look, Judy, I understand you're having trouble right now. The reality of this is, here's what I would have to do if you weren't able to pay, because my mortgage, my expenses still happen. This is really hurting me as a landowner. And, this is part of my income. I'm going to have to seek a payment order from you. Whenever this all ends, I'd have to seek a payment order from you. And you'd be, by then you'd owe me like 18,000 or whatever it is. And then I'd have to garnish your wages to get that money back. And I don't want to go down that road. I don't think you want that either. So Judy, let's work together. Let's work something out. You're collecting these benefits. Let's see if we can get this much money rolling in, and then I'll work something out with you. Or you say, Judy, let's see, if you can get me this much, and you give her a month free, I will let you out of the lease and forgive the money you didn't pay. And you can go find something that's more affordable, that's going to work better for you in this current situation. I'm not saying that's a perfect solution, but I think if you reason with people, and landlords, you're not powerless. Even if you have to wait, this is why we save cash, because even if you have to wait, you can go, once you get the payment order from the landlord tenant board, you can register that with the court, and you can pay like $120 for each method of collection you want against their bank account, against their employment. I'm not a lawyer. Talk to your lawyer, talk to your paralegal, but there are ways, and you're not helpless. Even if you got to wait, this is a timing thing. This isn't a permanence thing. So I think some of the negativity out there, you just need to get a little bit more informed with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so like, I agree with some of those, as long as your tenant's willing to work. So like for mine, I'm willing to work with all of them, like, because they want to do well, and they're not, but there's different spectrums of tenants that some of them just say, you know what, let's start these lobbying groups of, let's do a rent strike. So I think there's like from that spectrum to somebody that truly can't pay. And then there's different ways that you would deal with both of those, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, there's always the mistake tenant you put in, you should never have, right? And that, if you're in that situation, damn, that's not good. Yeah, I agree. So two sides, right? Like I've really worked hard. I mean, the thing I like about students is that their parents are paying, and I've had one that couldn't pay right away, but he just paid me today. But, that could change. These parents might lose their jobs, and that might affect my ability to collect rent from them. But I do love the fact that I've got parental guarantors. I've got the students on the leases. So I've got kind of a lot of ways to work with them on that. But yeah, I mean, we've all made mistakes with tenant selection. So if you're in that situation right now, I definitely feel for you. And I hope you're able to make ends meet until you can get them out of there. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's just important to have those discussions before the first of the month, so that you know where you stand and what's coming and what's not coming. And ideally get yourself a buffer in cash, so that if you have to carry it for some time, that you're not going to lose or have to sell. So look, there's good and bad. We'll come out of this. We'll all come out of it with, more knowledge, more insights, experience. I mean, 5 years from now, we're going to do well. 10 years from now, we're going to do really well. It's kind of short term. It's a little bit rocky, but it's definitely not the end of the world. And I will say tenant screening is so important. And potentially, if you don't find that right tenant, leave the place vacant if you can until this is over. If you don't need the cash, and if you don't need a tenant to be in there until you find that tenant that you're comfortable that's going to be able to carry the property and pay the rent.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a tenant right now for one of mine, and I do have a bunch of applications. I'm showing it, but I'm going to be screening that. And I don't know if you have any tips specifically. This isn't students, but I don't know if you have any tips with that one, Sarah, because what job is stable right now? I mean, healthcare. And even that, there's been healthcare layoffs because the hospitals actually aren't that busy right now. It's just the ICUs. No one else wants to go to the hospital. So it's a bit of an interesting dilemma.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm enhancing my already enhanced thorough screening processes, but I will be looking at how they've managed March, April, and May, and potentially June. And I will be asking for statements. And if they don't want to share, that's fine. But I will be checking with current past landlords, even if it's a year from now, how they handled this time.
So do you want to see that they have like 5 months of rent available, or 6 months of rent, or something like that?
It doesn't have to be 6, but I need to know what their plan is, and that they have more than just first and last. And then what is their plan for if they can no longer work? What is their plan for, it's going to be more of those conversations, but I need to inspect as well, because I think there's going to be tenants that are going to do cash for keys landlords that are going to do cash for keys with their tenants, and those tenants are going to have the cash. And they probably got out because a landlord didn't want to have to go and wait 18 months to get them out. So they're giving them 10 grand, but so it's not just enough to check that, but I want to know how they handled it, how their landlord, and them worked something out. And it's one thing if they had the money. So if I look at it and I'm like, okay, I don't see any rent payments coming from that tenant, being pulled from their accounts, and I still see that they had money, that's not a good sign. Or did they work something out? So like, I just need to add that to my screening process. I need to make sure that if there's a $500 emergency, that they're not going to be all of a sudden not able to pay rent either.
So you'll actually request 6 months bank statements from them?
No, I will request specifically March, April, and May of this year. So
of their primary bank account.
Of where rents is coming from. And because this is the only control I have. So if they don't want to do it, I'll just go on to the next person. I don't care. I'm not taking that risk.
Very, very interesting. So is this the type of rental unit where you would have a demand of like 10 people who are ready to take it, and then you're just picking between one of the 10?
Yeah. So basically what I would do, I wouldn't necessarily just show 10 people. I do a Kijiji screen where there's questions first they have to answer. Then I do a phone screening with a bunch more questions. And like these questions will be coming up. And then my application has a list of questions that they need to fill out as well. And then these questions will be specifically there. And then I'm going to ask them for submission of certain documents as well. So when they see the house, that's when they get the application with the questions. But prior to that, they're not coming to even view anything until I do my first 2 checks.
Yeah, I'm doing something similar now. It's just this is very uncharted territory to me, this type of situation. So yeah, we're all in it together, eh? So
absolutely. And I will say, like, guys, at the end of the day, here's the thing. My tenants are great. Andrew, it sounds like you got some great tenants. The majority of them will want to work with us. So we don't need to start panicking, but we just need to enhance what we can control, which is, in my opinion, it's the screening process. Because as soon as they have the keys, if you have one that slipped through the cracks, unfortunately, that wasn't the right one, it's going to be a lot harder and it's going to be a lot more money to put that wrong one in there. So on that note, hey, it is what it is. We're all in this together, like you said, Andrew. And at the end of the day, health comes first, family comes first. There's going to be positive in all the situations, even a situation like this. So final words of advice?
Well, you covered a lot of it there. I guess we'll just go back to the main thing, guys. Take stock of the rights that we've given up so far, and put your foot down. Like there's only so far we can push this. Our governments, they cannot run our economy. Only our economy can run our economy. The free market must be allowed to function. So start thinking outside the box, talk to people around you, come up with a plan, come up with an idea, just ideas. Let's throw them around. At the end of the day, there is a better solution than the one that's being proposed. And it takes smart people talking, sharing ideas, and coming up with a plan, and then petitioning their leaders to respond to that plan. This is supposed to be a government for the people, by the people, not a government that's controlling the people with the people holding their hands out saying, please help me. So let's just keep that in mind. And I think we'll be all right.
Awesome. Where can the listeners reach out and find out more about you?
So Instagram or Facebook at the Andrew Hines is probably the easiest way.
Okay, awesome. And you have your podcast as well. What's your podcast called?
It is the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. So any platform you listen on, including YouTube, just search my name. And on YouTube, you'll find a motorcycle guy as well, but you'll find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for your insights. Thank you for questioning the situation and the world that we live in today. It's important to think outside the box as well, not just believe everything at face value.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. It was fun.
Hey guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this podcast with Andrew Hines. Please take care of your families, take care of yourself, take care of your mental health. Have a glass of wine, cheers, and this will pass. If you are interested in the tenant screening processes and enhanced measures, I have that on my website, and it is $197. I hope that it will help you. It's all of the forms that I use, all the processes that I use to make sure that I have the very best tenants in my units, and I can, as much as possible, eliminate the professional quote unquote tenants. So if you guys are interested on that, it is some video modules, and we are doing a live call as well, where I'm going to share some of the enhanced processes and procedures now with COVID, but also moving forward, that it's going to be important for us to have as landlords, investors, and we need to be doing this to protect our business, because tenants and tenant screening is our control. That's in our control. Afterwards, if you unfortunately let a bad one slip, it may cost you a lot of money in the long run. So again, it's not a foolproof. There's always something that can happen, but I will say it is better to be diligent and try to maximize the opportunity to have some great tenants in your rentals so that you can go through this month in and month out. And, guys, stay safe out there. If I can help you, please send me an email, reach out to me. You can actually also reach out to me on Instagram at Investor Sarah Larbi. And just let me know if there's anything that you need any help with that I can help assist. So guys, hopefully everyone is safe and healthy, and thank you for tuning in.
Thanks so much for listening to Where Should I Invest with your host, Sarah Larbi. Make sure to listen in next time. We'll catch you on the next episode of Where Should I Invest?